Hello, folks. How are you? My name is Danny. Welcome to Danny's Corner. Today, I want to talk about a controversial subject, and I know a lot of people are going to have opinions on this, and that's abortion. A lot has been happening, and one of the things that I want to focus on is this uh, law that I don't think has gone into effect yet, but it might in Arizona. To summarize the article that I reviewed to prepare myself for this news, although it's an opinion that I've held for quite some time already, I'm going to put it down in the comment section if you would like to read it. And then I ask you, if you're going to comment, like always, be respectful. I understand that these are sensitive subjects, but we must all be civil when discussing these things. And remember that that's the only way that we could have a conversation is by being civil, and we don't get anything by insulting one another, by doing all of these things that hurt one another. So I do want to approach this in a respectful way. So to give you context for those of you that may not know, because believe me, there are some people that are not into politics, that are not into news in general. And as you know, unfortunately, now everything has become political, or nearly everything. Regardless of who made it that way or what started this, it's a topic for another video. But it's sad when things like this become politicized. Okay, so there's a law, or there was a law, um, back in 1864. This is before Arizona was even a state of the United States, that banned almost all abortions, except if the mother's life was at risk. Um, they're trying to bring this law, they're trying to make it into a law once more. Somewhere in the process, it died and went away, and we never heard about it. So now it's coming back. And people are worried that with this law, there might be, the same as always, people might seek for abortion somewhere else, therefore endangering women's lives. Um, Obviously, there might be some illegal practices going on, since perhaps access to abortion may not be readily available, right? Um, and the fear that doctors may be prosecuted if this law goes into effect is a big concern for those people that are for women's rights. Okay, and again, if I am saying this information the wrong way, you can always correct me. I have no problem with that. This has always been a touchy subject for me. Again, I'm not afraid of giving my opinion, but I do understand that a lot of people do have the belief that, this should be done. This is what the Bible says, this is what God says to do, and things like that. And so there's this spiritual war, if you will, with abortion, and if it should be done or if it if it not should, if it should be done or not. And one of the things is they always bring up religion, as I said before. So let me approach this from a compassionate point of view. And unfortunately, I think that that's what a lot of people are missing when it comes to giving their opinion for or against. It's compassion. Compassion for everybody involved. And it's the first thing that we need to do and able to come to an agreement. We may disagree, as I said before, but before doing that, we must hear all sides. We must be open to dialogue. And we must be also open that not everybody is going to think like us, right? Not everybody has to agree on this. That what I may think as an individual may not be what the collective thinks. Am I explaining myself? Okay. So here's my take on this. For me, I'm a person who personally, I am against a woman having an abortion. That's just me. I am against that. However, just because I am against a woman having an abortion doesn't mean that I am going to force everybody else to believe like I do. That would be imposing my will. That would be not letting others think for themselves. That would be like me saying, I am the only person, or I belong to the group who has the truth and nothing but the truth. And so that's what's going to be enforced, whether you like it or not. And I believe that if the other side were to do the same thing, to impose something that we don't like, we would be just as upset, right? So, just in case I haven't made myself clear, although I am against abortion, I do think that a woman has the right to choose. Why? Because it's her body. Now, for those of you who are saying, but you are a Christian and you're supposed to obey God's law, and the law says this and the law says that. I understand what the law says. I'm talking about Christianity or religious law, Judeo-Christian, right? And I think even law is kind of like not a good word for that, because it seems more of an obligation. But I don't want to touch on that subject just yet, right? Because that will encompass other things. And I do want to get to, why do Christians follow what they follow? Is it out of a sense of duty, like they have to? Or is it because they feel it? But anyway, let's not get into that right now. So I understand that this is what most Christians think. Well, an abortion is wrong under God's, law. Again, and I use that in quotes. And this should not be done. But you have to understand one thing. All of us as Christians should understand one thing. And that's the most important thing of all. You cannot force other people to think like you do. Just like atheists, like Buddhists, like Muslims, like Hindus, like any other person, they cannot force their beliefs on us. We are not, and we cannot force our beliefs on them. Just imagine if, as a disabled person, I were to start a campaign, and this would get a lot of media, a lot of attention, and my goal was to force people who didn't want to serve us, people with disabilities didn't want to accommodate us. I would force every private and public places to accommodate us, no matter if they liked it or not. You think that would be correct or not? Do you think that would be a right thing to do or not? A lot of people would say, no, you can't force others to do whatever you want. Who do you think you are? The world revolves around you? No. It's the same exact thing with abortion. The world doesn't revolve around Christianity. And we need to get that straight. For thousands and thousands of years, Christianity has been imposed on people. And this is why a lot of people have been either leaving Christianity or Judeo-Christian beliefs and turning either to atheism or other practices, spiritual practices. So, as I have said before, perhaps on this channel, and if not, I'm going to say it for the first time. Before a person enters church, they are already being excluded in every way possible. And it includes things like these. You're being forced to do something you don't want to do, all because somebody's God tells them that it is wrong to have an abortion. The thing here is, do you know their God? Maybe not. Maybe not, and that's the truth. A lot of people do not know this God that Christians are talking about. Let's be honest here. Second thing, if you have heard about the God that Christians are talking about, how has he been presented to you? When you have talked about this God with Christians, or when you have been able to open your heart, even for a bit, you have been able to let your guard down and say, okay, let me listen to these people just for, 5 minutes, 10 minutes and see what they tell me. What have you heard? What things have you heard that have said, this turns me off and I don't want to receive these people anymore? You can all agree with me that they have been forceful, right? They have been pushy. They have been preachy. They've been hitting you. It's as if they were hitting you with a hammer nonstop. And they believe you should know these things already. And one of the things is that, no, believe it or not everybody knows these things. But the way that Christians are doing it is not the right way either. And so I come back to the same thing again. Imposing your law or your view of life is not the right way, especially when you are introducing the Judeo-Christian God to a secular world. And to begin with, it's not even an accurate portrayal of who God is or what he is. See, you're saying one thing in church, or you're saying one thing, but you're demonstrating another. Does that make any sense? Well, if it doesn't, let me explain. You say that abortion shouldn't be allowed because it's against family values and it's against this and it's against that. Yet, on the other hand, if a person is born poor, if a person is born with a disability, or becomes disabled, or becomes poor, or has any other circumstance that has led that person into some tough situations in their life, you don't have any compassion. I'm talking about Republicans here. Sorry, I know this is not political, but as I said, all of this mess started when politics started getting involved with religion. This is why the two should not mix, should have never, ever mixed with one another. So you don't have any compassion for those who have fallen on hard times. You don't have compassion for those people that have a disability or that look, walk, talk, and think different than you are. We've become an intolerant society, not only as Christians, but as a whole, atheists and non-atheists. And so by doing this, not allowing women to choose is a violation. It's abuse. It's the same thing that you have been doing to other groups. Now, I don't know what kind of thing has this particular group done so their voices could be heard to say we should stop this and we should ban this at all costs. And this is now always a major thing when it comes to politics. But if we were fair, we would not only make this issue an issue, right? We would bring all issues that concern rights as a whole to the table. Because if we keep on doing this, aliens are going to come, and what about their rights? So the rights of people or of aliens or whatever comes our way is not going to stop. We should stop this once and for all, I believe, and stop politicizing things that should not be politicized. So I repeat what I said before. To me, I don't believe in abortion, but I do believe that a woman has the right to choose. I can't impose my belief on any other person. Do I need to make it more clear? I don't eat a lot of onions because of my migraines. But I cannot impose, just because I don't eat a lot of onion, should mean that other people should stop eating onion when they're around me, just because I have migraines. Does that make any sense? I know I'm simplifying this, but this is the only way that I can find to make it simple for everyone. And this is what we try to do. And again, I'm going to use another example just to get off the abortion thing for just a minute and apply it to as blind people. Because we have the same problem as well when it comes to people trying to make us believe one way, the way that they want to. Believe it or not, there's this whole thing with blind people. Should audible pedestrian signals be a thing? Should they be installed or not? Or should people be able to cross by themselves? Yes, that is a thing. Some people are against them. Some people are for them for different reasons. And for whatever reason, they're trying to, not in the grand scale as they are with abortion, right? But there is a little bit of pushback, if you will, with this type of thing. Well, people shouldn't be dependent on technology. Other people say, well, it's helpful. To me, I believe that there's always a reason for why something was invented. And although you may see it, this is a dumb invention, you never know who's going to serve. So, for example, a lot of people know that blind people, not all of them, but certainly a great number of us, when we cross the street, we tend to veer. It's just something that happens. And so, with that said, these audible pedestrian signals help us, not necessarily because we're blind, if that makes any sense, right? But because maybe there's a lot of traffic and there's a lot going on, these audible pedestrian signals bring us back and help us to keep us in track, if that makes any sense. So it's like a guide. And sometimes, depending on other disabilities that we may have, and see, that's the thing, other folks are not considering that. Depending on what disabilities we have besides blindness, it can be really hard to cross the street. Therefore, you need audible pedestrian signals loud enough for people to pay attention to. It's just a common sense. But again, as I said, there's always going to be a you're wrong and I'm right. And the same thing comes with making money accessible for blind people. Some people are going to be for it and some people are going to be against it. Again, I'm bringing this whole unrelated topic to the table to make my point. You don't know what other things may cause a woman to have an abortion. It can be a number of things. What I think or don't think doesn't matter at this point. Because I am not able to force my opinion on anybody else. If people want to hear me out and why I think the way that I do, fine. But I can't force my opinion on them. Let's not go back to the 1930s, and this is a video that I'm going to make. Let's not go back to the 1930s where we had the eugenics movement, where people were forced to be sterilized, all because a lot of people thought one way. And in that instance, during that time, a lot of people with disabilities and the black community didn't have a say, couldn't refuse. This is why I say that we should have compassion. We shouldn't force our beliefs on anybody else, because they don't know God the way you do. And I can't emphasize this enough. The God that has been presented to most of us from fellow Christians is not the God that a lot of people would like to follow. And this is why I say that this video is going to cause controversy. A lot of controversy, I believe. Because a lot of people think in a closed-minded way, well, this is what the Bible says and this is what the Bible says. Well, just as the Bible has many interpretations, so does everything else in life. As I said, blind people have differences as well. So what side should we be on? Right? There's a good side and a bad side to everything. And one of the bad things that Christians do is that they go so far that they want to force every single thing on every single person. Remember when the Native Americans were captured, enslaved, when the blacks were enslaved, and they forced their beliefs on them. Perhaps some of them were educated the proper way. Perhaps some of them were told about the gospel in a good way, but not all of them. the majority of them were mistreated, were beaten, were ostracized. And they had to believe in this God, right? And so all of a sudden, this God that Christians believed in back in 1864 or 1776, and even today, there's this contrast. Well, how can you speak to me about a God that loves me and this and that when you're treating me this way and this way and this way? Something is not making any sense here. And Christians aren't able to explain that. So please, if you want to not have an abortion, then don't have it. Period. It's your choice. You don't want to have it, you don't want to have it for whatever reason. But you cannot impose your beliefs on anybody else, just as I am not able to impose my beliefs on anybody else. That should be the end of it. Why did this even become an issue in the first place? Why did this become a federal issue in the first place? It should have never come this far. We should have always had freedom of choice, not only with abortion, but with everything else. Freedom of choice. You choose if you want to do bad or good. You have a choice if you want to mistreat people or you do not. There's always a choice. But can you imagine being forced to believe in something and you're asking yourself, but why? Because so-and-so said so, but I don't know this person, or I don't know this God, or I don't know who's in charge. This is a blind person telling you, folks. I'm a totally blind person who has experienced this from the sighted community, from the able-bodied community. I'm supposed to believe the way you do because you guys are sighted and you guys know what you're talking about. Well, what if I don't believe like you? Don't I have a say on things as well? Aren't I allowed to question science? Aren't I allowed to question other people's beliefs? And I think this is what the church as a whole is afraid of. I'm going to end with this. The church as a whole is afraid of this. They're afraid of people questioning them, questioning their authority, challenging their beliefs, regardless if they're right or wrong. They don't like being questioned. They don't like being asked tough questions about anything, regardless if it's a blind person or not. And I'm telling you this because I have lived that experience. So if we all got together, as I said before, and we finally started to understand that the same issue that women are facing right now, their voice is not being heard. If we all understood that it's not only happening to them, it's been happening to other minority groups. I've talked about it here. It's been happening to the community with disabilities. If we were to all join forces and start a dialogue where people were able to hear us out, not in the individual way, well, let's talk about abortion, let's talk about this, let's talk about that. No, let's talk about the root of the problem, and that's where we need to get to. the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is this: why are you not allowing us to choose what we want to choose, regardless if it's good or bad for us? Who are you to dictate what's good and bad for me as a blind person? Who are you to say what's good or bad for a woman? We must all face a consequence for what we do. And we cannot protect each person from themselves. And able to learn a lesson, we must all fall, get hurt, and out of that experience, we learn. But that's not going to happen if people keep on rescuing us, which I think, in a way, this is what these so-called pro-life people are trying to do. They're trying to rescue us. That's not your job, folks. That was never your job. Stop doing it. It is not your job to rescue us. And you've had the opportunity to rescue us in other ways. And it is in those areas where you have failed miserably. Yeah, but then when we try to tell you about that, you guys get angry. So explain to me, how does that work? I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you very much for hearing me out. Again, I know this is a controversial topic. Again, I know that I talked about other things, but I wanted to but help you to understand that this is not just a thing that women should be concerned about. This is something that is going to happen to all of us. It has happened to all of us already. And we only think about it when it hurts us personally, when it involves us personally. It is then that we say, why should I wear this, or why should I wear that? This is where ego, selfishness, and all of these things come from. Thank you very much for subscribing. If you would like to join me, consider subscribing, sharing this video, giving a like, leaving a comment, some questions if you wish. Remember that the more likes a video gets, the more other people will join, because these videos, that's the way they get pushed out to other people who might be interested in these or other topics that I talk about. And again, I do believe that there's a lot of misinformation, especially when it comes to people with disabilities. And again, I'm talking about this because people with disabilities are one of the first groups that their reproductive rights are not taken into consideration. But that's just me, and I know that I have not only people, right, but articles to back me up. So thank you very much. I appreciate all your support. Take care.